When we talk about mental strength, we often think of willpower, determination, or the ability to push through adversity. But there is a deeper, quieter strength that comes not from ourselves, but from our faith in God.
This strength is rooted in a profound sense of inner peace, a peace that can carry us through the fiercest storms of life. Kathryn Kuhlman, whose ministry touched millions, often spoke about the transformative power of faith, not just in the miraculous, but in the everyday battles of the mind and heart. She understood that faith in God is not just about believing for the impossible, but about finding a place of rest and calm in the midst of chaos.
Life is unpredictable. We all face moments when the ground seems to shift beneath our feet, when we receive bad news, when relationships falter, when our plans unravel. In those moments, anxiety and fear can easily take hold. The mind races with questions. What will happen next? How will I get through this? It's natural to feel overwhelmed, but faith in God offers a different perspective. It invites us to step back from the noise and remember that we are not alone, that there is a loving presence watching over us, guiding us, and holding us steady. This is not just a comforting thought. It is a source of real, tangible strength. When we trust in God, we are able to let go of the need to control every outcome. We can surrender our worries, knowing that there is a greater plan at work, even if we cannot see it in the moment. This surrender is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of courage. It takes strength to admit that we do not have all the answers, and even more strength to place our trust in the one who does. Kathryn Kuhlman often shared stories of people who found peace in the most trying circumstances, not because their problems disappeared, but because their faith anchored them. She would say, "God is still on the throne, and prayer changes things." That simple truth has the power to transform our mental state. When we believe that God is in control, we can face uncertainty with a calm assurance. We can quiet the anxious thoughts that threaten to overwhelm us, and instead focus on the steady presence of God's love. This inner peace is not passive, it is active and dynamic. It gives us the clarity to make wise decisions, the patience to wait for answers, and the courage to keep moving forward. It allows us to respond to challenges with grace, rather than react out of fear. In the Bible, we read about Jesus calming the storm while his disciples panicked. He spoke, "Peace, be still," and the winds and waves obeyed. That same peace is available to us today, not just in the miraculous, but in the quiet moments when we choose to trust rather than worry. Faith in God also helps us to reframe our struggles. Instead of seeing difficulties as threats, we can view them as opportunities to grow stronger in our faith. We learn to rely on God's promises, to remember that He is working all things together for our good. This shift in perspective is powerful. It takes us out of a place of fear and into a place of hope. It reminds us that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will come. Moreover, faith gives us the strength to be honest about our feelings. We do not have to pretend that everything is okay. We can bring our fears, doubts, and anxieties to God in prayer, knowing that He hears us and cares for us. There is great freedom in this vulnerability. It allows us to process our emotions in a healthy way, rather than bottling them up or letting them control us. As we pour out our hearts to God, we make room for His peace to fill us. Kathryn Kuhlman's life was not without its own storms.
She faced criticism, disappointment, and personal loss. Yet, she radiated a sense of peace that drew people to her. It was not her own strength, but the strength that came from her unwavering faith in God. She once said, "I surrendered unto him all there was of me, everything. Then for the first time I realized what it meant to have real peace." That peace became the foundation of her mental and emotional resilience. In our own lives, we can experience this same peace. It begins with a simple act of faith, a decision to trust God, even when we do not understand. It grows as we spend time in prayer, read His Word, and surround ourselves with others who encourage us in our faith. Over time, this peace becomes a shield, protecting our minds from the storms of life and giving us the strength to stand firm. So, when the winds rise and the waves crash, remember that faith in God is not just a belief. It is a source of unshakable inner peace. It is the anchor that holds us steady, the light that guides us through the darkness, and the strength that makes us mentally stronger than we ever thought possible. If there's one thing that unites us all as human beings, it's the experience of facing setbacks and disappointments. Life has a way of testing our resolve, sometimes in ways we never expected. We encounter closed doors, broken dreams, and moments when it feels like hope itself is slipping through our fingers. In these times, it's easy to feel defeated, to wonder if we have the strength to keep going. But faith in God offers us something extraordinary, a wellspring of hope that builds resilience deep within our hearts. Kathryn Kuhlman understood this truth intimately. She often spoke about the power of hope, not as wishful thinking, but as a living, breathing force that comes from trusting in God's promises. When we place our faith in God, we are not just believing for a better tomorrow. We are anchoring ourselves to a hope that cannot be shaken by circumstances. This hope is what gives us the courage to rise after we've fallen, to try again when we've failed, and to keep moving forward even when the path ahead is uncertain. Resilience is not about never feeling pain or disappointment. It's about how we respond to those moments. Faith in God transforms our response. Instead of giving in to despair, we are reminded that our story is not over. God is still at work, even in the darkest chapters of our lives. The Bible is filled with stories of men and women who faced incredible odds, yet found the strength to persevere because they held on to hope. Abraham waited years for the fulfillment of God's promise. Joseph endured betrayal and imprisonment before seeing his dreams realized. David faced giants, both literal and figurative, yet never lost sight of God's faithfulness. This same hope is available to us. It whispers to us in our lowest moments, reminding us that God's plans are greater than our setbacks. It tells us that every trial has a purpose and that nothing is wasted in God's hands. When we believe that God is for us, we find the strength to keep going, even when we don't see immediate results. We learn to trust the process, knowing that God is shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for something greater. Kathryn Kuhlman often encouraged people to look beyond their present circumstances and fix their eyes on what God could do. She would say, God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. That kind of hope is not rooted in our own abilities, but in the limitless power of God. It lifts our gaze from our problems to the possibilities that exist in Him. It gives us the resilience to endure hardship, because we know that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events for our good.
There is something incredibly powerful about hope that is anchored in faith. It is not easily shaken by disappointment or delay.
Instead, it grows stronger in adversity. Each time we choose to trust God in the face of difficulty, our resilience is strengthened.
We become more confident, not in ourselves, but in the one who holds our future. This confidence allows us to take risks, to step out in faith, and to pursue our dreams, even when the odds seem stacked against us. Faith-fueled hope also changes the way we see ourselves. Instead of viewing ourselves as victims of circumstance, we begin to see ourselves as overcomers. We realize that our worth is not determined by our failures, but by God's love for us. This shift in perspective is life-changing. It empowers us to rise above our circumstances, to keep believing, and to keep pressing on, no matter what comes our way. One of the most beautiful aspects of faith is that it is contagious. When we hold on to hope in difficult times, we inspire others to do the same. Our resilience becomes a testimony to those around us. People see the peace in our eyes, the strength in our steps, and they wonder where it comes from. In those moments, we have the opportunity to point them to the source of our hope, our faith in a God who never fails. Kathryn Kuhlman's own life was a testament to this kind of resilience. She faced many challenges, including personal loss and public criticism. Yet she never allowed those setbacks to define her. Instead, she leaned into her faith, trusting that God had a purpose for her pain. Her hope was not in her own strength, but in the God who had called her. And because of that hope, she was able to persevere, to keep ministering, and to touch countless lives with the message of God's love. In our own journeys, we will face moments when hope feels distant. But it is in those moments that faith becomes most powerful. When we choose to believe that God is still at work, even when we cannot see it, we tap into a resilience that carries us through. We discover that hope is not just a feeling, but a choice to trust, to believe, and to keep moving forward, no matter what. So, let us hold fast to hope, knowing that faith in God is the foundation of true resilience, and that with Him we can face any challenge and emerge stronger than before. One of the most profound gifts that faith in God offers is a sense of purpose and direction. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, it's easy to lose our way, to question why we're here, and to wonder if our lives truly matter. We can find ourselves drifting, searching for meaning in our work, our relationships, or our achievements, only to discover that these things, while important, cannot fully satisfy the deepest longings of our hearts. But when we place our faith in God, we discover that our lives are not random or accidental. We are here for a reason, and our journey has meaning far beyond what we can see. Kathryn Kuhlman spoke often about the importance of living with purpose. She believed that every person is uniquely created by God, with gifts and callings that are meant to be used for a greater good. This understanding changes everything. When we know that our lives are part of a divine plan, we begin to see ourselves and our circumstances differently. We realize that even the ordinary moments, the daily routines, the small acts of kindness, the quiet prayers are woven into a tapestry that God is creating.
Nothing is wasted. Every experience, every challenge, every joy and sorrow is part of a story that is bigger than ourselves.
This sense of purpose gives us direction, especially when life feels confusing or overwhelming. It's like having a compass that points us toward true north, even when the path is unclear.
We may not always know the next step, but we can trust that God is guiding us. The Bible tells us, "In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths."
That promise is a source of comfort and confidence. It means that we don't have to figure everything out on our own. We can seek God's wisdom, listen for His voice, and trust that He will lead us where we need to go. Having a sense of purpose also helps us to persevere through difficult times. When we know that our lives have meaning, we are less likely to give up when things get tough. We understand that our struggles are not pointless, but are shaping us, teaching us, and preparing us for what lies ahead. Kathryn Kuhlman often reminded people that God can use even our pain for a purpose. She would say, "God never wastes a hurt." That perspective allows us to face adversity with hope, knowing that something good can come from even the hardest seasons of our lives. Faith in God also frees us from the pressure to compare ourselves to others. In today's world, it's so easy to look around and feel like we're falling behind, or that our lives don't measure up to someone else's highlight reel. But when we understand that God has a unique plan for each of us, we can let go of comparison and embrace our own journey. We can celebrate the successes of others without feeling threatened, and we can trust that our path is unfolding exactly as it should. This brings a sense of peace and contentment that is rare and precious. Moreover, living with purpose gives us the courage to step out in faith, to take risks, and to pursue the dreams that God has placed in our hearts. Kathryn Kuhlman's life was a testament to this kind of boldness. She followed God's leading even when it meant stepping into the unknown, facing criticism, or making sacrifices. She understood that true fulfillment comes not from playing it safe, but from saying yes to God's call wherever it may lead. Her example encourages us to do the same, to trust that God's plans for us are good, and to move forward with confidence even when we can't see the whole picture. Purpose also connects us to something greater than ourselves. It reminds us that our lives are part of a larger story, one that is unfolding across generations and touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. When we live with this awareness, we become more intentional in our actions, more compassionate in our relationships, and more generous with our time and resources. We begin to see our lives as instruments of God's love and grace, and we find joy in serving others and making a difference in the world. Finally, faith in God gives us the assurance that our lives matter, not just for today, but for eternity. We are not just passing through this world. We are part of God's eternal kingdom. This perspective brings hope and confidence, even in the face of uncertainty or loss. It reminds us that our story does not end here, and that every act of faith, every step of obedience, has lasting significance. So, as we journey through life, let us hold on to the truth that faith in God gives us a sense of purpose and direction, guiding us through every season and empowering us to live with meaning. Courage and hope. One of the most remarkable ways faith in God can make us mentally stronger is by teaching us the power of forgiveness and emotional healing. Life, as we all know, is not without its wounds. We experience hurt from others, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. We make mistakes ourselves, carrying guilt or regret that can weigh heavily on our hearts. Over time, these emotional burdens can become barriers to our mental well-being, clouding our thoughts and draining our strength. But faith in God offers a path to freedom, a way to let go of bitterness, to heal from the past, and to move forward with a renewed sense of peace. Kathryn Kuhlman often spoke about the importance of forgiveness, not just as a spiritual command, but as a vital key to emotional health. She understood that holding on to resentment or anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. It's a heavy load to carry, one that can affect every area of our lives. When we refuse to forgive, we keep ourselves chained to the pain of the past, unable to fully embrace the present or the future. But when we choose to forgive, we open the door to healing, not just for others, but for ourselves. Forgiveness, of course, is not always easy. It can feel impossible, especially when the hurt runs deep. But faith in God gives us a new perspective. We are reminded that we, too, have been forgiven completely and unconditionally by a loving God. This realization changes everything. When we truly grasp the depth of God's mercy toward us, it becomes easier to extend that same mercy to others. We are no longer defined by our mistakes or by the wrongs done to us. Instead, we are defined by God's love and grace. This process of forgiveness is not about excusing harmful behavior or pretending that pain doesn't exist. It's about releasing our right to hold on to anger and trusting God to bring justice and restoration in His own way and time. It's about choosing to let go, not for the sake of the other person, but for our own freedom. Kathryn Kuhlman would often say, "Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hatred." When we forgive, we set ourselves free from the prison of our own bitterness. Faith also helps us to forgive ourselves. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is the one we see in the mirror. We replay our failures, our regrets, and our shortcomings, allowing shame to take root in our hearts. But God's love is greater than our mistakes. He offers us a fresh start, a clean slate, and the assurance that we are loved and accepted just as we are. When we accept God's forgiveness, we can begin to heal from the inside out. We can let go of the past and embrace the future with hope. This kind of emotional healing is transformative. It brings a sense of lightness and freedom that is hard to describe. We no longer have to carry the weight of old wounds or unresolved anger. Our minds become clearer, our hearts more open, and our relationships healthier. We are able to approach life with a new sense of resilience, knowing that we are not defined by what has happened to us, but by the love and grace of God. Kathryn Kuhlman's ministry was filled with stories of people who experienced deep emotional healing through faith. She saw firsthand how God could mend broken hearts, restore relationships, and bring peace to troubled minds. She believed that no hurt was too deep for God to heal, and no situation too hopeless for Him to redeem. Her message was one of hope and restoration, encouraging people to bring their pain to God and allow Him to work in their lives. Forgiveness and emotional healing are not one-time events, but ongoing processes. There may be days when old wounds resurface, or when we are tempted to pick up the burdens we have laid down.
But faith in God gives us the strength to keep choosing forgiveness, to keep seeking healing, and to keep moving forward.
It reminds us that we are never alone in our struggles, and that God is always at work, bringing beauty from ashes. As we walk this journey of faith, we discover that forgiveness is not just a gift we give to others, but a gift we give to ourselves.
It is a declaration that we will not be held captive by the past, but will embrace the freedom and healing that God offers.
It is a step toward mental strength, emotional resilience, and a life marked by peace.
So let us open our hearts to the healing power of God's love, choosing forgiveness and embracing the freedom that comes with it, knowing that this is one of the greatest strengths faith can give us. As we reflect on the ways faith in God can make us mentally stronger, there is one aspect that often goes overlooked, yet it is absolutely vital: the power of community. Faith is not meant to be lived out in isolation. From the very beginning, God designed us for relationship, not just with Him, but with one another. When we walk in faith, we are invited into a family, a supportive community that encourages us, lifts us up, and helps us grow stronger together. Kathryn Kuhlman understood the importance of community in the life of faith. Her ministry was never about one person standing alone, but about people coming together, united by a common belief in God's love and power. She saw firsthand how lives were changed, not just through individual encounters with God, but through the support and encouragement of others. In her meetings, people would pray for one another, share their burdens, and celebrate their victories together. There was a sense of belonging, a reminder that no one had to face life's challenges alone. This sense of community is a powerful source of mental strength. When we are surrounded by people who share our faith, we find encouragement in times of doubt, comfort in times of sorrow, and joy in times of celebration. We are reminded that our struggles are not unique, that others have walked similar paths and have found hope and healing along the way. This shared experience creates a bond that is both comforting and empowering. There is something deeply healing about being able to share our hearts with others who understand. When we are honest about our struggles, our fears, and our doubts, we give others permission to do the same. In this space of vulnerability, true connection happens. We realize that we are not alone in our battles, and that together we can find the strength to keep going. The Bible tells us to bear one another's burdens, and in doing so, we fulfill the law of Christ. This is not just a nice idea. It is a practical way to build resilience and mental strength. Community also provides accountability. When we are part of a faith community, we have people who will lovingly challenge us, encourage us to grow, and help us stay on the right path. This kind of support is invaluable, especially when we are tempted to give up or lose sight of our purpose. Kathryn Kuhlman often spoke about the importance of surrounding ourselves with people who will speak truth into our lives, who will remind us of God's promises when we are struggling to believe them ourselves. In moments of weakness, the faith of others can carry us, giving us the courage to keep moving forward. Another beautiful aspect of community is the opportunity to serve and support others. When we reach out to help someone else, we often find that our own burdens become lighter. There is a unique joy that comes from giving, from being a source of encouragement and hope to those around us.
This outward focus shifts our perspective, helping us to see beyond our own struggles and recognize the needs of others.
In serving, we discover a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment, which in turn strengthens our own mental and emotional well-being. Faith communities also celebrate together. They mark milestones, rejoice in answered prayers, and give thanks for God's faithfulness.
These moments of shared joy are important. They remind us of the goodness of God and the beauty of life, even in the midst of challenges.
They give us reasons to hope, to dream, and to keep believing for better days ahead.
Kathryn Kuhlman's gatherings were filled with testimonies of God's goodness, stories that inspired faith and reminded everyone present that miracles are possible. Of course, no community is perfect. There will be misunderstandings, disagreements, and moments of disappointment. But even in these challenges, there is an opportunity for growth. Faith teaches us to extend grace, to forgive, and to work through difficulties together. In doing so, we become stronger, both individually and as a group.
We learn that unity is not about sameness, but about coming together with our differences, united by a common faith and a shared commitment to love one another.
In today's world, where loneliness and isolation are all too common, the gift of community is more important than ever. Faith in God connects us to a family that spans generations and cultures, a family that will walk with us through every season of life. When we lean on one another, we find strength we never knew we had. We discover that together we can face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and celebrate every victory. So let us cherish the gift of community, drawing strength from one another as we walk in faith, knowing that together we are truly stronger.